What's going on, family? This is Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. I want to take a look at a welterweight match that took place October 4th, 1940 in Madison Square Garden. It was the main event that night. And it was a special night because on the undercard you had a phenomenon who was a new attraction. He was a Harlem superstar, and he would win in 1939 and 1940 Golden Gloves. His name was Walker Smith, better known as Ray Robinson. He would join the lightweight ranks, and he would start off the card with a 4-round victory over Ray Escavelia. But that main event would host one of the greatest fighters of all time. I have this man ranked number 4 of the best fighter in the history of the game. His name is Henry Armstrong, and he would take that title away from Barney Ross in 1938. And that would be his second world championship. You see, Henry Armstrong would pick up the featherweight championship strap in 1937 when he defeated Petey Cerrone. And he would have the audacity to skip lightweight because he couldn't get a title shot with Lou Ambers. So he would move up to the welterweight championship strap, and he would win that title from Barney Ross. Now, his manager, Eddie Mead, said that we have to overshadow Joe Louis because Joe Louis had taken the heavyweight championship belt away from Jimmy Braddock in 1937. So they decided to be the only fighter to hold 3 world titles simultaneously. In order to make that happen, Henry Armstrong had to go back down to the lightweight division and face Lou Ambers. And he would defeat Lou Ambers and pick up that welterweight championship, lightweight championship, and featherweight championship at the same time. He would hold it for many years. But he would release the featherweight championship belt because he couldn't maintain his weight, and eventually the lightweight championship belt. But he would be known as the welterweight champion who take on all comers. And on the night of October 4th, 1940, he would face one of the most dirtiest and cleverest fighters of all time, the Pittsburgh Fritzy Zivit. And I want to go through that fight, but I want to go through it with you. But I have to do it right here on the Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. What a fight. What a night. Now, Fritzy Zivit was born May 8, 1913 in Lawrenceville, Pennsylvania. He died May 16, 1984 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Now, he stood 5 foot 10 inches and weighed 128 to 160 pounds. He was a welterweight champion when he defeated Henry Armstrong October 4th, 1940. He was managed by Luke Carney and Louis Stoken. He was trained by Bobby Quinn. Now, Fritzy Zivit would hold the distinctions of being the only fighter outside of Harry Gleb to fight 7 Hall of Fame fighters and defeat 9 world championships. That's impressive. They were former world champions, or they were going to win the title, but he would be in the ring with them. Fritzy Zivit was a product of 5 fighting brothers: Joe Zivit, Eddie Zivit, Pete Zivit, and Jack Zivit. They were all older than he was. Pete Zivit's name was Pete B. Zivit. He was born March 16th, 1901. He died January 1987. He was a flyweight. And he would go into the Olympics. Jack Zivit. His name was John A. Zivit. He stood 5 foot 6 inches and he weighed 126 pounds. He was born June 23rd, 1903 and died May 22nd, 1973. He would lose to Jack Bernstein in an elimination tournament. He would KO fighters such as Lou Tendler, 1925, and defeat Charlie White, 1923. Ironically, both these fighters would get an opportunity to face Benny Leonard for the lightweight championship strap. Now, Fritzy Zivit would face world champions such as Lou Jenkins. Lou Jenkins would win the title away from Lou Ambers. Jake LaMotta, who would win his middleweight strap, away from Marcel Sedan. Freddie Red Cochran, he fought him July 29, 1941. Izzy Genazzo, fascinating fighter. Sammy Angot, who would hold the NBA lightweight championship. He would face Jackie Wilson. 1943, he would go to the war. And the number one ranked Lenny Boom Boom Mancini would be waiting for him, but he would never get his shot. He would face Henry Armstrong, October 4th, 1940. And then again, January 17th, 1941. That was for the welterweight championship belt, which we'll discuss today. He would face Lou Ambers in 1935, July 1st. He would face Billy Conn, who would be light heavyweight champion. He would face him December 28th, 1936. He would face Sugar Ray Robinson twice. He would face Maxie Berger, another outstanding fighter. Bo Jack. Bo Jack was a lightweight champion who would defeat Tippy Larkin, and he would lose his title to Bob Montgomery, who Fritzy Divick would face as well. July 12, 1938, he would face Ozzie Bulldog Harris. He would face Billy Lancaster, Ralph Gizzy, Kenny LaSalle, Bobby Poncho, Frankie Blair, fascinating fighter, and Eddie Cool. He would face some black murderous role fighters such as Charlie Burley, fought him 3 times, June 13th, 1938, in Malvern, Pennsylvania. He would lose to him in 10 rounds. March 21st, 1938, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, he would lose to him in 10 rounds. And we fight him one more time, July 17th, 1939, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, he would lose to him in 10 rounds. So he would lose 30 rounds to the great Charlie Burley. He would face Johnny Jadek, Jimmy Leto, Mike Bartow, Young Gene Buffalo. He would face Johnny Jadek February 18th, 1935, Young Gene Buffalo April 17th, 1936. He would face Milton Aaron September 15th, 1941. Phil Fur, Baby Slavin, and he would also face Kid Azteca. Now, his Kid Azteca was something else. He had over 200 fights, 252 to be exact. 192 he would win. He would knock out 114 of his opponents. You don't find that today. Fascinating resume for Kid Azteca. Now, Hammerin' Henry Armstrong was born December 12th, 1912 in St. Louis, Missouri. He stood 5 foot 5.5 inches, and he weighed 120 to 147 pounds. He died October 23rd, 1988 in Los Angeles. Now, he was originally managed by Al Jolson, but Al Jolson would sell his contract to Eddie Mead. Now, Al Jolson used to wear the blackface. He was on Broadway, but he would make money and revenues when he would sell the contract of Henry Armstrong to Eddie Mead. Eddie Mead would bring along George Moore. And Henry Armstrong's trainer would be long time Al Silvani. Now, Henry Armstrong has a very interesting resume. 1937, he would have 27 fights. He would defeat all his opponents, but he would knock out 26 of those opponents. The only fighter to go the distance with him would be Aldi Spaldy. He would go 10 rounds. But other than that, Henry Armstrong would knock out 26 of his 27 opponents, defeating all of them. 1938, he would have 14 victories, 10 knockouts, no losses. October of 1978, he would have 5 title defenses in the month of October. December 1936 to September 1940, he would be 59-1-1 with 51 KOs. Fascinating fighter was Henry Armstrong. I would like to read something to you. Fouls seem to come naturally to Fizzy Zivic, a master at gouging, butting, rubbing the heels of his glove into the wombs, low punching on the blind side. Somehow he went through 232 fights in 18 years, held the World Welterweight Championship, and was never once disqualified. Fascinating. Now it mentions here that he would hit low on the opposite side. What they mean by that is that he would hit his opponent low on the opposite side of the referee. He knew all the tricks of the trade, did Fizzy Zivic. After all, he had 4 older brothers that was in the game as well. And Fizzy Zivic was a master in that ring. He was one of the most craftiest fighters in the history of the game. But I want you to read something. An editor that I do respect. I read a lot of his work. His name is Harry Pegg. And he summed it up in his journal. Let's take a look. Now, Fizzy Zivic's decisions, Henry Armstrong. But here's what Harry Pegg wrote. The letter from Harry A. Williams, quoting Willie Ritchie, relative to Add War Gas. I did a promo on that one as well. Reminds me of a statement made in 1939 by Fitzy's youngest of the 5 fighting Zivics. Zivic's remarks were, perhaps a dozen welterweights in the world could beat me. I wanted a shot at the champ. Listen to this. Because he delivers to my delight, and I can lick him any day of the week. As you can see here, Arthur Donovan was the referee for that fight. Now, what Fitzy Zivic would mean by that is that Henry Armstrong was made to order for him because he would put his head in the chest of Fitzy Zivic. That would allow Zivic to do as we read here. He would be able to foul. He'd be able to heel, rub, butt, rub his dirty gloves and the sweat, and the salty sweat, into the wounds in the eyes of Henry Armstrong. It was a perfect matchup. But what's funny about it is that Henry Armstrong would defeat Fizzy Zivic after his second loss to him. Fizzy Zivic was just one of those fighters who had Henry Armstrong's number. Henry Armstrong was one of the greatest fighters of all time. And as I showed you, before this fight in 1940, he would have over 36 fights. He would win them all. 27 in 1937. 26 knockouts in that same year. He would have 5 title defenses in the month of October of 1938. Perhaps he was burnt out. Perhaps he had one fight too many. But it was a great fight for both men. And I have it one of the greatest fights of all time. One of the greatest fighters of all time falls to the waistline. Henry Armstrong, Triple Crown, Buzzsaw. So this is one of the greatest fights in my memory. I'll always cherish. Because an idol of mine, Henry Armstrong, was defeated by a true veteran in Fitzy Zivic. And that fight took place Madison Square Garden, 12 rounds. October 4th, 1940. A young Ray Robinson watches in awe, getting a revenge later in his career. And Ray Robinson would say, at about 43 or 44, he said the greatest lesson learned was when he fought Fizzy Zivit. This is Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series, saying all great fights and all great fighters will never be forgotten on my channel. Salute to these great fighters. Salute to these outstanding Hall of Famers. Thanks for hanging in there with me. Salute.